Welcome to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Liu Xin. In this series, I'll dissect stories that are making headlines around the world and talk to my guests to compensate for the missing pieces of the puzzle. So join me in real time by sending us your comments or questions via the CGTN page on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube or Weibo. If you're watching this on the CGTN application, email me at thepointwithlx@cgtn.com. Let me know what you think. We air our Headline Buster segment on Fridays at 11 a.m. Beijing time, so do get in touch and we just might read out your comments. Today, we're talking about a story that's intrigued scientists, surprised local people and captured the hearts of animal lovers and people in general around the world. The herd of wandering wild elephants trekking across southwestern China. But before we dive in, let's first take a look at some comments on the story. From Satyanarayana Rawi on YouTube, my high school teacher said they didn't come to our place, we went to theirs. Claudia Soares on Facebook said, I hope China deals with this in a civilized manner. I hope they don't hurt the elephants. And from Katra Jana on YouTube, they should be transferred back to their own habitats because the more they stray off course, the more damage they inflict. Anesthetics is the answer. Well, I can tell a lot of people care about the fate of these elephants, as well as about the relationship between them and us. It sounds simple, but as I find out more, it's a complicated issue that deserves informed and nuanced discussions. That's what we'll try to do. As usual, we'll first take a look at how the story that has been covered in China and elsewhere and ask why we're seeing more neutral reporting on a China-related story, or if I may, a Chinese animal-related story. What more still needs to be said? Before we get to our examples, some background about these intrepid travelers. According to reports, the herd has already wandered over 500 kilometers from their home in the Xishuangbanna National Nature Reserve near the southern tip of southwest China's Yunnan province, starting in the spring of 2020. Along their journey northward, 2 turned back, 1 calf was born, so there are now a total of 15 elephants, including 3 calves. The latest reports, however, say 14 of them made a U-turn and was spotted near a city called Yuxi, while another one is on its way not far away. Authorities have been closely monitoring the herd's movement. Officials of the provincial capital Kunming and neighboring areas have drawn up elephant accident and prevention emergency plans, deploying all possible resources to deal with the unusual emergency. Local authorities are making around-the-clock efforts to track and steer the herd to avoid encounters with local residents. Experts have joined the group to study the herd's movements. Villagers along the route were notified to take precautions. Trucks are being pulled over as barricades to shelter the herd from entering populated areas, and tons of corn and other food are being prepared and fire engines assembled to supply them with water. Policemen are on duty around the clock to prevent local residents from entering into dangerous areas. So far, the elephants have reportedly caused more than $1 million of damage, mostly from destroying crops. Officials are warning residents to keep their distance, not to try to scare them away or risk a provocation, and to keep foods attractive to the elephants, such as salt and corn and fruits, of course, out of their yards. As bewildering as the sight of elephants charging through cities may be, they can also be dangerous. Authorities are scratching their heads as to how to lure the herd back home. If I had the opportunity to talk to the elephants, my questions would be, why have you wandered so far and where are you going? Of course, nobody really knows for now, and they don't really talk. But elephants are known to roam, and this herd, however, has broken the record for the longest movement ever recorded in the country by the animals. There are theories. Some say perhaps an inexperienced leader led the herd astray. Some say it's climate change. Others say environmental factors are at play, that the elephants went in search of a new home or different food after their own habitat has been threatened by human agricultural activities. Some media cited shrinking natural rainforest as evidence. But studies have shown instead of intact forest, wild elephants have come to prefer a mixture of land uses such as near villages where a large quantity of ready food is easy to come by. While Asian elephants are experiencing population declines globally, China is one of the few countries that has seen an increase in numbers. The number of Asian elephants in China has increased from about 170 in the 1980s to some 300 at present. That speaks to decades of conservation efforts. In fact, a nature reserve was approved in Xishuangbanna as early as in 1958. After China enacted the Wildlife Protection Law in 1988, Asian elephants were listed under A-level protection, the strictest level. All this against a backdrop of economic development to improve the livelihood of local residents, a delicate balance to keep. One thing is for sure, these wandering elephants have become celebrities, capturing the attention of people in China and around the world. It has become a developing story over the past few weeks among media within and outside China. Chinese media have gone to great lengths to update people on the whereabouts and well-being of these huge mammals. The strong parental love shown along the way between adult elephants and calves has made many hearts melt. This clip, for instance, of a calf being closed in by 3 adults during a snooze gives the notion of prisoner of love a whole new dimension. On-site reporting by journalists, live broadcasts, use of drones, there has indeed been avid enthusiasm for these wildlife and our relationship with them. One video showed villagers shouting, "They're coming," as a crowd ran down a street trailed by a police car that was then followed by the elephants. Never has nature been so close to us and moving too. So looking at the international media landscape, it's been a real breath of freshness. Instead of the usual accusationary pieces that we have become so used to, for the most part, the elephants have been covered in a much fairer way than their Homo sapien counterparts. Most articles give the key facts in the story without jumping to conclusions and even highlight some of the efforts China has been making to protect wild elephants and this particular herd. Maybe because it's a truly universal story which everybody would love to follow. By the way, oh, there's an elephant in our studio. Let me try to pat it. Oh, so sweet. But this is a virtual elephant, so I can pet it. Don't try this at home, as it's dangerous to touch elephants. It could also be the fact that the local authorities have really done the right thing. Instead of using force, they have shown maximum patience and care for the herd while preparing people who could be in the elephant's way. Wild elephants roaming the streets of China says a lot about the country's conservation efforts. It's a story that's hard to twist. So here are some examples, and I would like to share them with you. One piece by the New York Times, after laying out the facts, draws attention to the complex task of balancing conservation with development. It says, "It's not clear what spurred the elephants to leave their home, but after conservation efforts, China's elephant population has grown in recent years, from fewer than 200 several decades ago to around 300 today, according to official statistics. The reporter does cast doubt on that number, but no strong evidence indicates otherwise. The article also quotes experts who don't scold China for not doing more to protect the environment or animals, but who focus on the science and the potential benefits. One expert says that the most important part of the story is that it will raise public awareness around the possibility of human-elephant conflict, which is likely to increase. And only by preparing people for that reality, she said, would conservation efforts really succeed. One BBC story covered the herd in a generally fair manner. The article says the 15 elephants have been hoovering up crops and poking their noses through doors on the march from the south of Yunnan province to its capital, Kunming, adding that a big effort with tons of food is underway to try and keep them safe. It didn't bother to mention China's conservation efforts, but we can live with that. However, as to what prompted the elephants to roam, some stories seem to have formed their own conclusions. For example, the CNN story, which aired yesterday, quoted unnamed conservationists who pointed to the destruction of the elephant's habitat, replaced by rubber plants and other lucrative crops. The reporter said there are only 300 Asian elephants in China. She didn't give the context that the number was less than 200 decades ago. And China is bucking global trends where wild elephant numbers are on the decline. If the elephant's natural habitat has been encroached by human activities, how come the wild elephant population has gone up considerably in China over the years? The report ends by highlighting the challenge for humans trying to coexist with the elephants as we impact their natural habitat. Well, I think we should hold the lecturing until after we find out exactly what caused the elephants to roam. I have similar feelings about this Al Jazeera article, China transfixed by elephants' long trek from Yunnan home. The headline is factual, but the story was built on the same assumption. It starts by saying a herd of wild elephants has been making its way through a southern border province of China, capturing the attention of millions of Chinese social media users, but also highlighting the rapidly shrinking forest habitats in the country as a result of development. It gives you the impression that not only the habitats are shrinking, but shrinking rapidly. This same article appears as a YouTube video, this time with the explicit title, Elephants Forced to Migrate Due to Loss of Habitat in China. Again, a theory promoted as a conclusion. As many of the video's comments point out, these elephants most likely wandered out of a nature reserve, so the probability they left due to habitat loss is questionable at best. I would also add there are farmers in surrounding areas whose lives and livelihoods are equally precious. Human-elephant coexistence means both sides can survive and thrive. Overall, though, this herd of wild elephants has united people around the world who care about nature and wildlife. And it's also raised questions that are becoming more and more important to all of us. How can we better coexist? How can people be educated about what to expect from our wild animal cohabitants? We'll get to these questions and more after a quick break. Stay with me.
Making sense of the overwhelming wave of information means cutting through the noise to shine a light on the heart of the story and making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point.
Welcome back to Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Liu Xin, and we continue our discussion. I will invite my guests. They are Simsim Wisgart, who is international editor of CGTN Digital. She has visited the Xishuangbanna National Nature Reserve. My second guest is Becky Shu Chen, who is technical advisor at the Zoological Society of London. And last but not least, Professor Rick Dunham from Tsinghua University, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. The warmest welcome to all of you. And this is such a fascinating topic. Let me go to Simsim first, because you've had a personal experience of this nature reserve. Tell us a bit about what you saw and what you experienced there, especially when it comes to the living environment of these wild animals there.
Thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience. I was there 2 years ago, and we visited the Asian Breeding Center in Xishuangbanna. So there were two things really there. I spent a day at the rescue center, which is where they rescue young elephants that are injured in the wild. They keep them, they make sure that they are okay. So that was part of the experience. And the other experience was also just shadowing the rangers who work in the nature reserve. And it's incredible work that they do, really. We saw some wild elephants roaming around, and it's incredible to see this up close. I think most of us have maybe seen elephants in a zoo, in a circus, in other situations, but to see them really in their natural habitat, they are massive beasts. They're really immense. And seeing these images the last few days, the last couple of weeks of this herd going through Yunnan, it really brought back images of what I saw when I was there.
What impressed you about the kind of efforts that are being taken there to protect not just the wild rainforest, the natural rainforest in Yunnan, but also the Asian elephant population? As I have said, in China, the number of Asian elephants has actually gone up over the decade, which is something very difficult to achieve. It must have been, I mean, you know, at this moment, we're still only seeing about 300. So tell us a bit more about the kind of efforts that have been going on in Xishuangbanna to increase the population of Asian elephants.
So first of all, as I said, there's the breeding and rescue center, which is one part of the effort. Obviously, they will rescue elephants that have been injured in traps. There are some famous stories, young elephants that have been abandoned by the herd because they were too weak. Or maybe sick. So that also helps to boost the population if obviously you're taking care of the elephants that already exist but might not survive if the humans were not there to take care of them. And then the rangers also make sure that, you know, there is as little conflict as possible between the humans, because it is a nature reserve that visitors can go to. And it's also traversed by a road that has a lot of lorries that go through, and the elephants also cross that road. So you have to make sure that the humans and the elephants don't come into contact too much, but at the same time monitoring them to see if they're healthy and monitoring the numbers just to see how they're doing.
Becky, let me go to you. What do you think of the kind of possible reasons as to why these elephants have roamed from their home? Do we know at this moment? Because there are different theories, right? But what is your wildest speculation, let's say, at this moment?
Yes, I think elephants, they're going out from the national nature reserves. It's common. We observe this kind of situation maybe back to 30 years ago already. So let me try to explain to you. Like elephants, they like humans and all the animals on the planet. They need food, they need a space to live, right? So where elephants live? They usually live in the lowland, flat and open regions. So these areas are also very beautiful plantations and also agriculture. So back to 1970s, the elephants live and constrain themselves inside national nature reserves. And what they eat. So back to 30, 40 years ago, so elephants, they eat maybe more than like 200 species, wild species, plants in the forest. But what happened? So 1970, we only have about like 140 elephants, but after like strict protection of elephants, the number just doubled. Now we have, like, I think the official data now is about 293 elephants in the wild in China. So as I mentioned, so like human like us, we need a home. So if you have a growing number of elephants, they need to go out to looking for new space. And also what they eat may change. So once they get out from the forest, so China, I think it's difficult, it's different actually from many other places. So we don't have like a buffer zone. So once they get out from the forest, they have plenty area of delicious food around them, like bananas, maize, the rice, and the elephants are super smart. And once they try the delicious food and the easy food, they never return. They love it. So I think it's a complicated issue. So this really make elephants choose to go outside and also living in a much kind of like a mosaic.
Professor Dunham, from a journalistic point of view, from a sociology point of view, what has captured your attention about the whole story, whether it's, you know, the bizarre scene of wild animals, you know, roaming the streets of modern cities, or the kind of efforts that have been made to try to track them and lure them back to their original home, or the reaction of the local people, or the reaction on the social media in China? What captured your attention?
Well, what captured my attention the most is how similar the coverage is in China and outside of China. I mean, you did mention some nuances that are different, but I found that really there wasn't much in the way of political differences. Some stories were less substantive. Some stories were sloppy or incomplete, but there was not the political bias. I mean, when I looked at the stories, I saw two main angles. Why are the elephants doing this?
Yeah.
And then the Chinese social media, that this has become a social media sensation. And those are what you would call hooks to get into a story. But I say the bottom line is that this is one of those stories that shows that we as journalists have a lot in common, no matter where we're from. We want to tell good stories, We want to tell compelling stories that are interesting and important. And this one is a uniting kind of story because it doesn't have the political or the nationalistic sensitivities that tend to divide us. And so I really do think that the coverage has been good, and the coverage has been quite similar. If you look at CGTN, People's Daily, it's not that different than the BBC or the New York Times.
Yeah. Sim, you work in CGTN Digital, you're an international editor. What has been your impression of the kind of media coverage, both on social media and on different, official media, or by official media, I mean, for instance, the names that we know, CNN, BBC, or CGTN, or print media. What has been your impression, and have you thought about it?
As Professor Dunham said, it's been across the board very similar. It's just a good, I mean, usually we say human stories are good stories, animal stories are also great stories. I mean, how can you see these videos and see these pictures and not feel touched, especially when you see the images of these the elephants taking a nap all together, and the little baby sort of nestled in the middle between the parents. It was top of the news. CNN, BBC was one of the main headlines because it's just a heartwarming story. It's a beautiful story. Something, especially on social media, is going to be really, really good. And something I wanted to jump in and also add to what Professor Dunham was saying. I think one of the things that comes out is indeed that the local authorities have been doing a very good job at trying to guide these elephants, trying to help them. And that was something I also noticed when I was down there, is that there's really, it's not just a job for the people who work there. There's a real, like, the local population has a strong relationship with these animals, and the rangers as well. The rescue center, they actually call them Xiang Baba, which is elephant dad, and they really treat them as if they were their kids. And for the rangers, they really have, they love these animals. So I'm not at all surprised to see the reaction from the local authorities, the local officials, the rangers there, trying to help these elephants because they really do love them and they really care for their well-being.
Yeah. I think it is a very interesting phenomenon that, as you mentioned, the videos have been so touching, right? And not just the baby elephant nestled in between the three adult elephants so that they can have a good rest while being reassured that the baby elephant won't go astray. But we've also seen other videos where, for instance, a baby elephant was rescued collectively by a couple of adult elephants in a very strong current river. You know, this is very touching for us as human beings to see the kind of parental, love and the kind of collectiveness that a herd of elephants can demonstrate. But Becky, here, do you think there is a potential danger that people would romanticize the story, thinking that elephants are cute animals, are mild, they're like us, they're sweet? Maybe there is a gap in expectations, because after all, we have seen incidences where elephants do destroy not just livelihood, but lives as well. What do you think needs to be said, needs to be highlighted for the public to really understand, the true nature of coexistence between humans and elephants and other wild animals in general?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think this is what we worry about, because I think for people who are living in the city and in other places, they have never had experiences with elephants before. They got the image from Disney World. Or, for example, from some zoo experiences, they think elephants are cuddly, cute, friendly animal. And today, I also watched some local news from Yunnan, just like Yimen. So now elephants in Yuxi, like Yimen County. So the farmers are so nice. They just gather the crops together to say, oh, well, worried, the elephants are hungry. Can we give the food to the elephants? So then I just responded to my friends. So you should really let them know. So if they really want to do a favor for elephants, go to the authorities. Because people, they have no experience with elephants. It's the reason why sometimes the conflicts happen. When you two species, human and elephant, they meet each other on the narrow path, something will happen. So for example, in the past, maybe 4 decades, I think 50 human lives, losing to the elephants. So actually, I don't know, maybe you don't believe me, but elephants are one of the most dangerous animals on the land. So I think we should really bridge the gap to tell people in the city so you don't try to go to cuddle the elephants because they're cute. Especially as you mentioned, they are sleeping. Yeah,
so we have to
like
be
together, like a family. They have affection. They know each other, native members, so we can feel the strong like human connection with elephants. Is what we want to say.
What about what happens next? I mean, what could the authorities do in terms of trying to bring these elephants back to where they should be, without keeping everybody in a big anxiety and uncertainty? In cities, people have suggested anesthetics. Is that a viable option, Becky?
Wow, I think it's one of the biggest challenge now because I think they are big animals. They are intelligent and they are the group of a family. So what we can do is to really observe them and at the same time of priority is to separate them with human settlements. So it's the reason why the authorities, I think, actually, I'm quite proud of what's trying to do right now because I think we are the only country to having the 24/7-hour monitoring team on the ground. So they're watching these elephants. So once they know the elephants are going to the human populated area, they can block the city, they can evacuate the people. But at the same time, so whether the elephants, they want to go back or not, I think it's up to their decision. So us, like researchers, I think what we can do right now is trying to really understand the behavior of the elephant, whether they have like personal experiences on the way, because different herds, like us, different people, not different, but there are too much things we don't know. And sometimes maybe trying to, on the way back to the Sierra Leone, too far away, 500 kilometers. I will not remember how to get back for me.
How to get back.
But I think they're more intelligent than me. They have the navigation system. But can we find somewhere way back from some continuous forest patch? Can we contact them somehow?
For sure,
So,
this is going to be a developing story, and we're all curious to see how it ends up and what will happen to this herd of elephants. We hope that they will be able to get back to their protected home safe and sound. Many thanks to my guests, Sim Wiscott, Becky Shu Chen, and Professor Rick Dunham. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Headline Buster, brought to you by The Point with me, Li Xin. I'll see you next time on CGTN. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.